Hello, and welcome back to Therapist Plays Disco Elysium. So, on today's episode, we're revisiting some characters that we talked to before earlier in the series. This time it's Idiot Doom Spiral, and we get to learn a little bit more about him and some of the stories that he likes to tell about the world of Revachol. We're also going to learn how to sort of parse out when someone's storytelling is sort of missing pieces, what's relevant and what's not, and how to sort of get a more complete psychological story out of someone, even if the one that they're telling you on the surface doesn't feel like it has all the details. So I'll be sharing with you some classic therapeutic methods that I use all the time, and we're going to see if we can piece together just what happened really to Idiot Doom Spiral. All that's coming up, so I hope you enjoy. Hello, and welcome back. All right, so back to the grinds. We still have a couple of things we can do before we go find Ruby. I feel like I've been saying that for like 10 episodes. I probably have, but it's okay. I'm trying to be a little more exhaustive, knowing that the series is coming to an end, which I feel sort of bittersweet about. It's been a wonderful journey. I can't deny. Look, I play video games. I've played them all my life. There are a few that have had a more significant impact on me than just being sort of like high bars for good entertainment. There have been very few that sort of become like core experiences, let's say. And Disco Elysium is definitely one of those. In no smart part because of how I've played it, doing it this way in this playthrough. Because yeah, it's taught me a lot about not only why I love this medium and how Disco Elysium is like the perfect example of why it's so great for storytelling, but also how I explain and explore psychological subjects, I think has been pretty heavily influenced by the way we've gone about this playthrough, actually. Because like the interactions with the characters and the interactions with you all and sort of like refining the way I explore subjects, like it's all been very formative to how I communicate topics of psychology. So while I am very ready to be done with it, because it's been almost a year, I'm also going to miss it. But there will be other things after it, which I will share with you once we actually are done with the game. But safe to say, there will be more games to play. I will just change how I cover them a little bit while trying to keep up, if not make quicker the cadence of uploads. And still keep it creatively refreshing. And I don't want to like have to limit myself to short games either. I want to be able to play something of Disco Elysium's length. But doing this for the past year, I've sort of discovered what limits my ability to cover it to a certain format, and I'm going to be changing that. So I'll share that later. But for now, there's still more to discover. Look, I'm going to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised if this series still goes to like 100. Every month that I cross in this year, I'm like, this is going to be the month. I was saying that in July. This is the month I finish Disco Elysium and I move on. We're at episode 59 now, and I do expect that, especially towards the end of the game, this may still bear out throughout the year. So let's enjoy it while it lasts. Okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna kind of pick around at whatever we haven't fully dealt with. We haven't talked to these gentlemen in a while. And look, I've been a little hesitant to, you know, do things like engage in politics and engage with the stupid necktie because I hate it. But you know what? I'm a little bit in like fuck it territory now that the game is now that we're coming to a close on it. So I'm like, fuck it. Let's get politically radicalized. Let's fucking throw on the necktie just to see what happens. it's more material to explore as far as Harry goes. So let's talk to these gentlemen. See if they have anything new for us.
Tequila sunset.
What do you guys do around here?
We are saving the world.
He looks at his comrades.
Please don't go.
Begs the man in the pipe.
Go.
Okay, we're drinking. We're drinking alcohol. That's what we're doing. I tried to save the world once, a long time ago, with enterprise, creativity, and willpower. But that didn't work out. So now, it's a pirate's life for me.
I see. You seem like you're characterized by your storytelling ability. Want to tell me another one sometime?
Whoop-de-doo. So now I'm a fucking storyteller. Right. Why not? Better than a beach bum.
Yes. Want to tell me how you became Idiot Doom Spiral?
It depends, really. Are you willing to help me out?
I would say yeah. I'm not opposed to it.
The gleam in his eyes and the slouch in his posture is so incredibly familiar.
Oh, help in that way. I was thinking he was going to be like, do you want to help me out? Like, like by talking to me about my problems. It's hard to not be a therapist sometimes. Like, oh, okay, what you really want is to get drunk.
Booze. Did you already forget our party? The thing I relayed to you earlier. So, have you got anything for good old Idiot Doom Spiral? A bottle for a story. Seems fair to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. Like, he's gonna get it anyways, by some means, and it's sort of burning a hole in our pocket. I don't want to give you any alcohol. I'm not an enabler. While that's true for Brady, I don't think that's true for Harry. I think Harry actually, our Harry especially, as he's working out his sobriety, just as it said here, like, we recognize the state that he's in, the electrochemical observation there. And I think, like, connecting to that state and being like, man, that fucking sucks, I know how that is, probably is a little bit higher in his, like, way of working out empathy than sort of standing on this principle. So, yeah, why not? Let's give him the Commodore Red.
Classy.
He snatches the bottle and pushes the cork through the bottleneck.
Hey, Spiral Boy, you gonna share that?
Shut up, guys. I'm telling a story here. Something happened to you. Something happened to me, too. My actual name is George, but around here, you already know. I was once a reasonably high net worth individual, a founder/junior partner at a high concept creative services agency. When my story begins, I had just landed a major contract with an insurance firm.
Go on.
I used the profits from my agency to finance what I called a cultural incubator. Abstract value generation, value per person, high concept stuff.
Okay.
I developed the paradigm, worked within the paradigm, but the burden of leadership weighed heavily on me. So I went jogging every so often to keep myself sane.
That's right. Getting a good run-in is important to maintaining your physical and mental health.
As a very avid runner, I agree.
Speaking of, when's the last time you did your laps, pork chop?
Harry probably hasn't. Well, I mean, we're fucking running around this town all goddamn day and night. I could probably use a good run myself.
It helped, truly. With my trusty Sansaric Lycra tracksuit, I felt like I could conquer the world.
The TM.
But now dreams are worn thin, much like my tracksuit.
He says thoughtfully, brushing dust off his shit-stained pants.
One day I left on my evening run. As you may know, it's impossible to clear your head when you're distracted by the sound of keys jangling in your pockets.
He shakes the bottle and makes a ringing sound.
He's right. It's incredibly annoying.
So I removed the key ring and put the keys for the front gate and the apartment into different pockets to stop the jangling, you see? At least, that was the plan. I was halfway done with my usual lap when it started to rain. The reality situation became very wet, very quickly.
How wet are we talking exactly?
Wet, okay? It was raining really hard. I made my way back home and discovered that I didn't have the key to the front gate. I'd mixed it up with the key to the letterbox, which was useless. Naturally, the situation required me to climb over the gate, which I did. There was no climbing down because I slipped and landed on my ass.
I would have landed on my feet. I've got feline reflexes. No, we're just gonna let him tell his little story.
Reality was looking rather grim just then. Me lying on my ass in a mud pit in the middle of a heavy shower. But when life knocked me down, I always got up. So I made my way across the yard. Standing in front of my apartment door, fumbling with my pockets, I realized that I'd also forgotten my apartment key.
Okay, so what happened next?
I rang my neighbor's buzzers. It was late, and most of them didn't even answer. Those who did assumed I was trying to sell them something and hung up before I could even explain the situation. People are naturally wary of ad men, you see. One moment someone chats you up, 5 minutes later you've bought a box of edible lingerie and a strap-on. I don't begrudge them, especially since I was known to be one of the best.
Okay. There's quite a bit of like grandiosity in what he's saying.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
Just then, I experienced a moment of clarity. I still had the key to my office. I could wait out the storm there. But when I reached my office, I remembered that I'd asked one of my producers to change the locks that day. And since I hired only the best, he'd already done it, and I couldn't get in.
Are you guys remembering the whole locus of control conversation that we had?
Anyway, long story short, life spiraled out of control. I haven't gotten into my apartment for years, and my girlfriend left me because she didn't want to date a homeless man. The company, well, you see where I'm going with this.
Yes, I do. It's highly externalized. It was my girlfriend's decision to leave me. The company did this thing. The guy I hired was... he did what I told him to, and that's why this happened. Like, there's a very fascinating thing sometimes because, like, look, I can relate to the experience Harry is having right now. I work in recovery. I meet people like all the time, brand new clients who are, you know, maybe it's their first day of sobriety sometimes, and one of the first questions I'm asking is like, what brings you here? What has brought you to wanting to do this now in your life, like come to treatment, as opposed to, you know, some other time? And so I hear lots of stories like this, lots and lots and lots. And you kind of have to develop this like specific sort of listening skill where the information that they're saying is important, but like where the keys were and who left it where, like that's not actually relevant to me, to what the work that I would be about to do with him. I'm like listening to that information, but I'm also listening for like the emotional core. And there's a kind of there's a paradox in what he's saying, which is, I was highly successful. Look at how good I am at coping with things, with my like running habit, the nice clothes that I have, the people around me do what I say. It's like describing a highly capable person. highly effective. And yet, like, the story he's telling is like one full of dysfunction, which tells me there's an imbalance here in perception of self and perception of action. So we'll return to how you start to weave into that.
So, now you've heard my tragic tale. What do you think? Like nothing you've ever heard, huh?
It's what I hear all the time, actually. It's something I probably hear a story like this at least once a day. Long story short, life spiraled out of control. Like, that's not the story you just told me. Life didn't spiral out of control. Like, you gave me a sequence of things where at each step there was a action that was taken, and something was overlooked in that action that could have prepared you to not be in that situation. Right? And the thing that's also missing is, like, okay, he's going to give me a detailed account of like what went wrong. He got locked out of his apartment, but he kind of skips over the part where he developed like a heavy addiction, which that's like a pretty extreme way of coping with a problem, to start engaging in highly self-destructive, self-soothing behavior like drinking or smoking or whatever. Like, the person he's describing, I would think, like, would have a much better skill set at dealing with problems and coping with them across that whole range of stressors than like, well, fuck it, I guess I'll just stay homeless and get drunk. So there is a missing piece of insight here. I think about change in sort of a 3-step process: awareness, insight, change. Meaning that lots of people try to change. They try to change paradoxically. They'll say to themselves, well, I've been feeling so bitter and cynical lately. I'm going to try to be more positive. That's just working in the change dimension, right? I've been eating too much. I'm going to cut back. Very one-dimensional change. You need to work your way back to the beginning of this, which is like, first off, awareness. Well, why have I been eating so much? Right? Like, I've been eating more than I did before. When did this start? Oh, I was broken up with a couple of weeks ago, and that's kind of when my eating habits started to change, for example. Awareness means, like, not just looking at, okay, what's the behavior I have right now and I need to change, but what is going on in my life that is causing this behavior? And then you can't just jump from awareness to change either, which is kind of what he's done. And this is what I see from a lot of people struggling with addiction who are quite intelligent, like Idiot Doom Spiral seems to be. Like, he is an effective storyteller. He was highly successful. But what I mean is that there's an insight component missing. There's an emotional intelligence component missing, because he's kind of at stage 1 and 3. He's aware, like, oh, a lot of bad things happened, and then I changed as a result. Like, I picked up this habit and look where I am now. He's aware of what happened beforehand, and he knows he has changed, but he's missing that middle piece. You become aware of something, and then you have to ask the question, why, how, to what degree, what are the factors that contributed to this, not just in the present, but throughout my life. Insight means not just saying, oh, well, I got broken up with, and that's why I started eating more. That's awareness. But insight means, well, going back, where did I learn that eating makes me feel better or makes me feel in control? Or for some people, where did I learn that restricting my diet makes me feel in control? Which is where we might develop disorderly eating, right? That need for control can play out sometimes as, like, I can control my body by restricting its food intake, and I can control my energy levels. Where did we learn that that is a proper substitute for control than some other more productive, non-self-harming way of control? And for that, you need to explore more than just what's been happening recently. That's the insight component. So you need all three for the change at the end of that chain to matter. Awareness. What has been going on in my life recently? Insight. Why does the change I've been going through like connect to a bigger perspective about my life and where I learned these things or didn't learn certain things? And change then can be a lot more successful because you have a lot more context for like what the precipitating factors were. And so I'll often write those three things out for people and kind of break down with their story, like what I'm hearing. I'm hearing a lot of awareness here and, you know, some amount of change, but really low insight. That does not mean a lack of intelligence. It just means a lack of truly digging into the things in his life that have led to this, right? And we can factor in the locus of control to that and say, okay, well, he's pointing out a lot of things that he's describing them as if they were out of his control, but let's look at our options here. There are some steps missing. Yeah. How did this turn into an alcoholism and homelessness? That's what we're missing. We're not fully ready to say you do realize all of this is your own fault. And that's certainly not what we would say therapeutically. I would probably say something like this, like, help me understand, because I'm not connecting the dots between that story and your current condition. So let's go with that.
Tequila, I've thought about this series of events for a long time. If there was anything else to it, I would have thought of it by now.
No insight. Yeah, exactly what I'm talking about. He's thought about it and he's told the story. You can even tell he's like basically memorized it to the point that he no longer tries to investigate any details outside of it. There's no insight here, which is a struggle, because what it means is now I'm not at a point in therapy where I can say, okay, let's start digging for the insight. I need to convince this person that they are missing insight first, because he's coming into this thinking he knows already how his problem started, but he doesn't. He actually has no idea. So we're not given an option that would explore that fully, but I kind of want to throw this at him and see what he says. I'm curious to see if we'll get some deflection into that whole external point of view. You do realize this is all your own fault.
I don't remember you being such a dick before, Tequila.
He takes a slow, despondent sip from his bottle, then looks out across the bay towards the skyscrapers of the Delta.
That doesn't mean you're wrong, though. Anyway, that was all the tale one bottle gets you. Almost empty, this one.
Okay. So he's willing to, like, recognize that this may be his fault, but that's kind of where the thought stops. Why do you keep losing all your stuff?
Good fucking question, Tequila. If I knew the answer, you think I'd be hanging out on a beach in this formerly premium but now extremely dirty two-piece Lycra tracksuit?
No, I don't think so.
I used to own my reality situation. My business buddies and I had our own creative services agency. I had a nice apartment, an even nicer piece of ass. But somehow it all got away from me.
Yes, somehow. Some inexplicable reason that's beyond our grasp.
Now I can't hang on to anything. Just last week I stole this nice new jacket, but then I lost it too. The only things I haven't lost are these two drunks.
So, and this is where you have to sort of separate out, like, okay, yeah, you might look at this situation and say, man, you're missing the role of responsibility here. And we might ask why. Why is this insight missing? Is it just that he can't see past what he described? Or is there a genuine reason? Because, like, look, if we were to start exploring his life, we might find a good reason that explains how he developed alcoholism as a coping mechanism, that's not just, he made a bad decision. It could be that that's a household he grew up in. It could be that, the world he has grown up in kind of presented him only with that option. It could have been all manner of things. But if you're not willing to even explore that, you're left with the question of like, okay, well, if you were able to say it's 7 or 8 different factors that have contributed to addiction, and there are so many, there's a genetic component to addiction, there are environmental factors, like it's a really complex thing that leads to this pattern of pervasive bad coping. And we could free ourselves from some of that responsibility even, and like give ourselves a break and say, yeah, I mean, I learned this was the only way to deal with my emotions. That's what my dad did. But we can never get that insight because he's not even willing to open that box, at least right now. And so what you're left with is, well, just the story he described. And if you don't have that other piece, you kind of just look at it and say, oh, okay, well, then you just made bad decisions. Without that context of his life, that's all you can assume. And that's all he probably assumes. And it's sad. It's sad because like I do sit down with people like this all the time where, their narrative is just, I fucked up. I'm a fuck up. This is just what my life. And the more I listen to their story, I'm like, you're actually missing some things that are totally not your fault. And if you were willing to include some of that stuff, one, this would start working on your self-esteem, which is a highly protective factor against addiction. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to first convince them that insight is missing and then basically teach them how to explore it. You can't just say, hey, idiot doom spiral, you grew up in a world that basically provided you very limited options in dealing with stress. Like, I can't give him that insight. I can't inform him of that connective tissue, one, because he's not offering it, but two, insight has to be internally driven. So as a therapist, this is like the fucking level of inception you have to do. You have to recognize what's missing. There's an insight component missing. You have to convince them that that is true, which he's not, if I knew the answer, I wouldn't be doing this. He's not convinced that there's insight missing. And then you have to teach them how to explore that issue. And there are so many ways to do this. There's lots of techniques, a full range of them. But even just a certain line of questioning can help, right? Sort of subversively, not even getting into like very direct questions like, so did you grow up around anyone who drank? He might see where I'm going with that and say, no. You don't want to ask that way. You kind of want to say something closer to like, tell me a little bit about like your household growing up. What did Dad do for work? Well, Dad was also in the advertising business, and he was really successful and whatever else. And you kind of get them to buy into like, tell me a little bit of a story. It sounds like Dad was really busy. Did he spend a lot of time with you outside of work? Well, no, he was always so stressed when he came home, so he didn't really have time to hang out with me. Interesting. Lack of formative connection there. So Dad was stressed all the time. Did you ever see him dealing with that stress, or how did he deal with it? Well, he didn't deal with it. I mean, he would just kind of disappear for hours, and then he would come home, and sometimes he would, seem really tired. Gee, I wonder what he could have been doing out there, right? You're kind of trying to get them to like have this light bulb moment, or explore the issue at least on their own terms, because if you keep trying to put it out there directively, they deflect very easily. We deflect, people deflect. I mean, like we all do. If you ask me what some of my problems are, I will find all kinds of ways to avoid your questioning because I know all the techniques to do it. Which is why we all need a therapist, even therapists.
You of all people should empathize with this. Perhaps this lost jacket is something you could help with?
We do empathize, and I think that Harry most especially, because we have been on this journey of insight, self-discovery since the beginning of the game. It's basically what our playthrough has been about, is not just being aware of ourselves, which is kind of how the skill system works. We're aware of like what our electrochemistry is telling us right now. It wants to fuck someone or whatever, right? We become aware of that, but then our insight tells us, why is electrochemistry such a dominant voice whenever we interact with people of the opposite sex? I wonder why. Does it have to do with, prior relationship trauma, for example? Why is our brain so fucking bad at visual calculus and logic and telling lies? Well, probably because we were, severely blunting our cognitive abilities with alcohol. It's entirely consistent, the playthrough, with the theme. So yeah, we can empathize a lot. I'm curious if that shit-stained jacket we found belongs to this gentleman. Let's inquire further. What's the name of your agency?
My agency, man. The Boom Boom Room. Our concept was combining high art with the lowest forms of marketing. The color red, breasts, and oil painting. I convinced my partners to reinvest some of our profits in an even more high-concept cultural incubator called Thin Air. The artists were happy, the clients were happy. I was financing a group of poets in East Revachol who were developing a new universal poetic language. But then it all went to shit.
How? I don't understand how. You're not telling us what happened.
If it sounds like it makes no sense, that's because it doesn't.
He's going right up to the point where we're not understanding, like, okay, so like things don't just go to shit. That's so high concept, I have no idea what it means.
I know. It was fucking awesome. Until I went on a jog, unleashing a cascade of doom that washed it all away.
This doesn't make any sense. I feel like I'm at work right now. What's up with the tracksuit?
What? You've never seen 100% Lycra before? Go on. Feel that primo material.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I hear these stories all the time. I hear like, yeah, I had up to like, this many thousands of dollars in my bank account, and like this was going on, and things just got out of hand, and now I'm here, and I'm like, what? What do you mean? How? Like, where's the connective tissue here?
You really shouldn't touch it.
I'll just admire it from afar, thanks.
That might be the right idea. This here is one of the last of its kind. Should probably be in a museum, honestly. Can't get it anymore. It was too primo, even for Grodd.
And though I'll say, like, whenever I'm encountering that situation, once we go on that process and explore that connective tissue, and because you're not just telling them, oh, well, this is probably what happened to you, it doesn't help. When you help them discover that, and they're like, oh my God, like, I'm starting to notice where things went wrong, it's so empowering. Because you're letting yourself learn that, like, having this insight about how things went wrong and that maybe your decisions were a big part of that, is very freeing from, like, the sort of, like, trap of avoidance and denial and shame and regret around these things. So I love that moment, when you sort of facilitate someone's insight. That's kind of what I live for. That's why I love the job. Because having someone, like, start to verbalize, like, dude, I just realized something since our last conversation. When you were talking about how, I'm just going to give a, broad example, like when they're talking to me now, I'm talking as a client to Brady. When you were talking about how, avoidant behavior shows up in this way, I didn't even realize that's what it was, but I can see that I was super avoidant of whatever. I can see how it impacted the communication between me and my partner, and I felt so alone. Even though we were still talking, I felt like she just didn't understand me. But what was really happening was I was not being clear about how I felt, and I felt she wasn't listening, but really it was me avoiding. And like, I just realized that, and I feel bad about that, but I also, like, I learned this about myself, and I'm ready to like try again. And I'm just like, yes, that's what therapy's all about. Like, it's so beautiful to see someone kind of climb out of that darkness, and then the change is possible at the chain awareness insight change, right? Like, then if you say to me, I want to go and improve my communication and relationships, I want to take more initiative rather than be avoidant, you are so much more likely to actually be able to do that, because you have the insightful component that tells you why this was even happening. But that change is just really hard when you're stuck in the like, well, my life went to shit and there's really no explanation for it.
Wow, you're lucky. Never lets me feel it.
That's because your paws are fucking filthy, Rosemary. We're right next to the bay. You could wash them anytime.
What about these other gentlemen?
My fellow members of the Union of Moribund Alcoholics? They're exactly what they look like.
Hey, tequila! You want to buy some speed?
Shut the fuck up, Rosemary. He's a cop, remember?
That's right.
I thought he was a cool cop.
I am cool. I'm very cool.
The gurgling sound comes from the direction of the non-responsive man.
And yeah, you're already acquainted with abs. So yeah, that's basically us. We drink together.
What about this lost jacket?
Tequila, it's a verifiable tragedy. It was practically brand new. Sure, it didn't really go with my lycra threads, but it did itch a lot less. Say, you're a detective, right?
Aha!
Maybe you can help old Doom Spiral out.
I think I can.
The case of the missing jacket. What do you say, Tequila?
You mean this jacket that I discovered on the boardwalk and had cleaned on a whim? The man examines the jacket for a moment, a look of consternation on his brow.
Nah, this isn't it.
Oh.
Found? That's medium concept stuff. Totally not my style.
Come on, man. This is your jacket. You just don't remember it.
No fucking way. Idiot Doom Spiral never forgets a piece of premium menswear.
Oh, whatever.
Hey, Doom Spiral. Ain't that the jacket you stole the other week?
Not on your fucking life, Rosemary. What's wrong with you people? Like I'd be caught dead wearing fawn, like some low-concept bicycle courier.
Hey, buddy, I'm wearing fawn stuff right now, and I'm wearing my Kvalsund fucking crowbar as well.
Tell you what, Tequila. Why don't you just hang on to that one? I'll get another jacket someday.
Okay. Have you got any more stories?
I do. But as you can see, my fuel tank is running quite low. If you catch my drift.
Let's give him the strike brew.
Interesting. Ah, this is what they use to keep the working man going. The tale I'm about to tell you is an urban legend particular to Martinez. That said, I first heard it from a former bicycle courier in Coron. There are many variations on the basic story, and the details often conflict.
Shocking.
What everyone agrees on is that nobody knows the exact nature or identity of the phenomenon.
Details conflict is like your whole life, dude.
Are you telling the story of the headless...
Shut the fuck up, Rosemary. Summer of 44. 17-year-old Gertrude Het is walking home from a late shift at the harbor. It's almost midnight. She stops for a cigarette near the canal.
The streets are warmed by a southerly breeze. The lights of a passing motor carriage bloom and fade in the distance.
Can I just have Shivers tell me this story, like, for real?
In the harbor's dark,
Oh,
her cigarette
yeah.
is a beacon, dancing alone. The image comes to you effortlessly, as though you'd walked the same streets yourself 1,000 times.
Our heroine finds herself enjoying the peace and quiet the canal provides.
He looks up to the skies as if searching for peace himself.
What she doesn't know is that her peace is about to be shattered. From behind her comes the clattering of hooves. Startled, she turns around, and what does she see?
A horse?
Well, yes, but it's the man on the horse that's of interest here. A man with no head on his shoulders, wearing a found tracksuit, searching for the legendary found cap that went missing when he lost his head.
Whoa.
Woe is right, my friend. Gertrude Head may have been the first to witness the headless found rider, but she wasn't the last. Oh no.
Tell him about the two feminists by the locks.
Fuck, Rosemary, they were dating. No one said they were feminists. Everyone always misremembering this stuff. Right. Early autumn of 46. Ula DuPont and Eva Delgado are fishing near the waterlock long after the sun has set. The wind picks up. A sky already dark now blackens. Water starts falling from above. The first cold rain of the season.
Wait a second. He didn't finish the story with the fucking headless. That's the story? This is a girl walking in the night, and then she hears him coming from behind, and then she sees him, and then that's the end of the story? What? Okay.
Two women stand on a small outcropping of rocks. One of them is wearing a purple raincoat. Thin lines reach out from the rods into the sea. Small droplets start appearing on the surface with increasing frequency.
I could just listen to Shivers all day.
The women are caught in the downpour. They act quickly. Eva gathers the rods whilst Ula turns around to reach for the tackle box.
Don't turn around. Don't turn around.
I love Inland Empire getting invested.
When she sees something, her shriek is so violent that the residents of the nearby apartment building believe lightning has struck.
That's a good thumbnail image.
But there is no lightning. Only a heavy downpour and the silhouette of the headless found rider looming on the horizon.
It's the same story.
Ula makes a run for the shore, but Eva slips on a wet rock and disappears into the cold, cold canal with nary a sound.
What? So the headless rider doesn't kill her. She just slips because it's raining and falls in the canal?
Her body is never recovered.
That's it? That's not scary. That's not a story. What happened to the other one?
Word on the street is that she, you know...
He makes a finger pistol with his right hand and lifts it up to his chin.
gave herself facial deconstruction surgery. Real grisly stuff.
Just based on that?
Anyway, that's the story of the headless found rider.
That's not a story.
Pretty crazy, huh?
No, it is crazy because there's no fucking story. Who was the headless rider before he died?
Well, Tequila, that's part of the legend. No one knows for sure. There are a couple of possibilities, though. Some say he was an undercover cop who blew his cover and got beheaded by the vicious gang he had infiltrated. Now he rides, searching for his lost-found cap, plotting revenge.
O headless brother, where art thou?
Others claim he was a professional jockey who veered off course during a steeplechase, ended up in somebody's backyard, and got decapitated by an exceptionally taut clothesline.
Even decapitation couldn't stop his commitment to the sport. Are you that committed?
No.
Personally, I think he was just some guy who hanged himself from a really tall tree, and the fall was so violent that his head came clean off.
Okay.
Coincidentally, at that exact moment, a horse happened to pass under him, and his beheaded corpse mounted it, where it remains to this day. But then, no one really knows.
What?
For some reason, this does strike you as the most plausible theory of them all.
I'm just gonna lean into it. That sounds very plausible.
Isn't it? All the pieces fit together perfectly. That's how I know it's right.
They fit together perfectly, just like your life.
Anyway, to each his own. You want to hear any other stories?
I'm curious what, if Harry's got a crazier story.
Yeah? Why don't you go eat shit, Tequila? There's no way you know a better one than that.
Ooh, which one do I want to tell? What about the Col de Mama d'Aqua? It's a magical self-replicating sound. The gnome of Jeroma dissolves its victims with acid. The giant of Coconura is as big as a mountain. I think the magical self-replicating sound is pretty interesting.
I have to admit, that's pretty high concept. Still not as awesome as a headless rider in a found tracksuit, though.
I mean, it's pretty cool. You're not saying it's not cool. Look, I've seen some weird shit on this case. A headless jockey in a tracksuit fits right in.
That's the reality situation for you. You think you got a handle on it, then blam! It throws some wild shit at you. That's why it's critical to stay well hydrated.
So if I was talking to Idiot Doom Spiral, and I was finding that pushing into like therapeutic relevant territory was difficult, like if I was like, hey, did you ever think about like the rest of your life and where some of these problems might have started? And he's like, no. Then I would probably try to lean into something he wouldn't even realize he is divulging information from, which I would appeal a little bit to his, well, the artful skill of storytelling is very unique. I would ask him, first a little bit of an affirmation. You're really good at composing storylines. Where did you learn that? This is what I call stealth therapy. You're in therapy and you don't even know it. Well, I've just always been good at telling stories. Yeah, but how did you know? Well, my friends used to tell me that, you know, I was the best person at telling stories. I don't know. I could maybe keep it really simple. I mean, how early did that happen? That your friends were telling you told great stories? Ah, well, there's just so much crazy shit going on when I was a kid or a teenager, let's say. You know, I got into all kinds of trouble and saw all kinds of crazy stuff. And, you know, my friends always asked me to tell the stories, even to this day. Oh, okay. So what kind of people did you grow up with? What kind of crazy stuff were you getting into? When you say you were getting into all kinds of trouble, how did that happen? What I'm looking for is like, okay, well, you certainly weren't at home doing something. You were out getting into trouble. So what was going on at home? Doesn't sound like you were in school. If you were getting in, you know, out getting into trouble or whatever. Well, yeah, I was always out. I hated going to school. I'm curious about that because you're such a good storyteller. I think that you would have really excelled in some sort of like language arts class. Well, I was in a language art class, but you know, the teacher was a fucking idiot, and you know, I was failing on my classes. I don't know. Like, it's telling me information about him. Pieces of the puzzle that are sort of relevant to like, okay, so there wasn't a lot of like, I don't know, parental guidance growing up in this fictional backstory I've given Doom Spiral. where he was getting validation was not from academic achievement, but from peer validation, from kids his age who liked the way he told stories. But he may have learned somewhat wrongly that my friends like me because I can tell a crazy story, so I'm going to keep seeking out crazy experiences to keep, because that's why they like me. And this may have encouraged more risk-taking behavior. And now I've learned, in a sense, that risk-taking behavior leads to a more interesting life, which provides me with material for my most essential skill and is why people like me. People only really like me when I'm interesting, so I have to keep my life kind of crazy. I don't know. I'm making up a total, like, fabricated life. But I'm just saying that, like, you're able to start piecing together patterns of pervasive themes in someone's life, often without them really knowing that's what you're doing. And it's, like, to their benefit, you know, because then as I'm having that conversation, I want that moment of insight to be like, you know, how did you feel telling me this story right now? Well, I appreciate that there's someone still around to listen to it. These guys have heard all my stories, you know, and now I want to bring it into the present. And now that we're in the present moment, I might go in the direction and be like, you know, you do seem quite proud of your ability to tell stories. Is there anything else about yourself that you feel is a good quality? And he might say no, but he might also say yes. And maybe we would start to just kind of build the rapport that lets me give him a little bit more direct feedback to say, like, well, you know, even though you don't say this is a quality of yours, what it sounds like listening to your story is that you like it when people appreciate, you know, the way you tell a story or something. It sounds like getting validation from people is part of what makes you feel connected to them. Right? And now we're back in the therapy. Do you think that there are other ways to connect to people? Right? We're just like exploring stuff. But anyways, whatever became of the headless Faun rider?
No one knows. Some say he stalks Martinez to this day, and can be seen near the canal when the clock strikes midnight.
He makes a spooky gesture with his free hand.
Aye, I saw him one night when I was right shit-faced.
Yes. Okay. I think we've got enough stories out of him from now. Let's ask him if he's seen Ruby around lately.
Can't really remember seeing any women after losing my keys.
It's a touchy topic. He hasn't got laid in ages.
I love how electrochemistry can detect that from just that comment. Okay. Thanks for the tales. These gentlemen have anything else?
The legend! He's back. And firstly, I got smokes and piss and a little speed to spice things up.
I think I'm spiced up enough already. Well, that's another encounter done. Going in the tradition of this playthrough so far. I did not start off this way. I did not intend for this to be the structure of the playthrough, but I've been kind of going at it like every conversation is an episode. But that's just the game's quality. Every conversation is so deserving of its own little vignette of character study, even like minor characters like them. Even minor characters that we've already talked to, that we're just revisiting now. So I think on the next episode, we'll take our little sleep and we'll wake up bright and early, meet up with Kim, and see if we can go break into the ice cream machine now that it should be quite defrosted. So, thank you for enjoying another episode of this series. There's plenty more to come, and plenty more after that. So, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.